Yeah, they got the memo at Terry's office that they were going paperless, and he shredded everything. It's like,
Sometimes you shred everything for a different reason.
it's because they said they were coming to your office, whoever they is.
Those alphabet people.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of SEO Fight Club. I just said hello in the YouTube chat. I'm going to pop that out so I can keep an eye on it. And today we kind of have a short show, so we'll fill in the extra time with Q&A. So be sure to queue up your SEO questions, and we'll try to answer as many as we can. But before we kick things off, let me mention a couple things. Our sponsor, Magic PR. It's a different kind of sponsorship. There's no money changing hands. He's giving us access to press releases to conduct primary research to find out exactly how helpful press releases are in SEO. And then we plan to share that information over the year as we conduct our various experiments and have our discussions on the matter. So if you're looking for press releases, Magic PR is a great source for them. I know he's been innovating new services, so be sure to check them out. The other thing I want to mention, as it's a little bit timely, is the SEO Rockstars recording. So I recently spoke there, Charles recently spoke there, Terry recently spoke there, Honey recently spoke there, Lee recently spoke there, Clint recently spoke there, and many, many more. And so it was amazing. It was very dense and awesome information, and a lot of people couldn't attend live. So if you don't want to miss out, a good way to save on the cost of going to conferences is to just buy the recordings, because then you don't need airfare, you don't need time off, you don't need to board the dog, you don't need to buy the hotel, you don't need to buy all the meetings. You just pay for the recordings and watch them on 2x speed, and you're through them in a day. So check them out. Really amazing content. My two favorites were Terry Powers, and he showed people how to train their own models for specific websites. Probably the coolest thing I've seen all year. So that one's been haunting me, keeping me up at night. I've thought of multiple $1-million businesses that you could start tomorrow using Terry's presentation. Frankly, I'm shocked he shared it. And then Charles, our new co-host, he had basically a strategy for doing website migrations, and we all encounter those. We've all botched them. We've all fought the 6 to 10 months to clean them up when they go sideways. His conference, his presentation at the conference, I view it as a Picasso of website migration. So if you've got one of those coming up, go explain to your employer that these videos have good information for that upcoming website migration, and it might just save you a fortune and a ton of headaches. So check them out. SEO Rockstars is a smaller boutique conference, but all of the best SEO experts kind of congregate there to exchange notes at the bar. So it's kind of an annual thing for us old SEOs and a few new SEOs. So be sure to check it out. And next time, attend live, and then you get to hear all the stuff we talk about at the bar. And that's the good stuff. That's not on the recordings. You got to attend live to get those conversations.
Yeah,
but check it out.
The value. That's the value of a conference right there.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back one slide. Hey, Madge, what are you doing for Black Friday? People want to know how deep the discounts are going.
Yeah, sorry guys, I'm just driving. So I'm hopefully going to launch the Black Friday deal this Friday coming. And it will be a 25% off every package. So bronze, silver, and gold will have a 25% discount across the board. But guys, please just be patient till Friday.
And
Not before Friday.
how long do the credits last? So if somebody bought 5 credits on this special on Friday, when do they have to use them by?
They have a whole 12 months to use any credit that they purchase, whether it's 1, whether it's 10. They
Okay,
have the entire year.
so if you need them at all during the year, you should probably buy them when they're at their cheapest and just have them ready to go because they'll last all year long. All right. Thank you so much, Mitch.
No worries.
All right. So for today's show, Charles has a rant. And we kind of like rants around here. So I'm interested to see what's got Charles all worked up.
My money is this is a very polite rant.
Oh, let me enable the screen sharing for him too. He's probably trying to share, and
Yeah.
like a pro, I didn't let him. All right, give it a try now.
All right. So, yeah, I'm going to call this rant "Do the Right Thing, Google." Yeah, it's probably a polite rant. I'm not as agitated by it as I was when it first happened. I've had a chance to cool down a little bit, but I think the key is, Google's not giving they're playing the game of pretending to be transparent when they're not really as transparent as they probably should be, as they definitely should be. So get right into it. So about on November 1st, Google tweeted out the following. So first of all, if everyone's not following Google Search Central on Twitter, I definitely strongly recommend you do that. There's not a lot of information, but there is some interesting things that come out occasionally. Specifically on November 1st, this came out where Google said, hey, we found a bug in how their the October core update was applied to Discover. So first of all, this kind of confirms that, all right, core updates are affecting both regular search results and Discover. There's multiple things happening in these core updates. So that's a little bit of a tell right there. But anyway, so they said they found this problem. The first thing I always do when Google makes an announcement is I jump into my logs and I see, well, what happened, what changed. I check my user agents. This turned into a bit of a red herring, though. This was just simply the November core update hitting our site. At first, I thought, oh my God, look at this. Google had to change their bot, but no, didn't happen. That was wrong. I then went into the dashboard to look around, and I saw little update notifications. Didn't think much of it at the time, but in retrospect, this was the November core update notification. So there was something missing in their search dashboard. When you return to X, formerly Twitter, and followed the link that they gave, it goes to their search status dashboard display, or not the dashboard, but it goes to a details where it shows that they found the bug on October 5th. They knew about it from October 5th, said nothing until November 1st when they found that there's fix, and then they applied the fix.
Sweep it under the rug.
Exactly. And that just irritated me to no end, because I do actually check their update dashboard pretty much daily to see what's going on. They never notified anybody on the 5th. You'll notice if you were to go into it and look on the November 1st, November 2nd, those little service informations had nothing to do with this bug that they found. So they didn't even link to this from their own dashboard.
And this is really bad because SEOs, whenever Google is at fault, just regular SEOs get fired. People get mad about their websites and it's the SEO's fault. But here's Google sweeping it under the rug, letting SEOs take the blame. So on one hand, I'm happy that they have this status.search.google.com/incidents thing up where they eventually do the right thing and take the credit for these events. but I'm with you. I wish they were a bit more on top of it.
So a couple of things, if I'm looking at this and sort of reading the tea leaves here, it's entirely possible that a website, somebody had a website that does a significant amount of Discover traffic, and that just all of a sudden disappeared. You could have had, a major drop in traffic due to this bug, and for a month, basically not known what the hell was going on.
Yep.
Or the
Taking
reverse.
the heat.
Or the reverse, you suddenly got a huge bunch of traffic on October 5th, and then it suddenly went away because you were benefiting from a bug, which I've seen that happen both directions. I've been hit by weird things that happen with Google, and then when they fixed it, everything was fine. I've also had bumps when something was going wrong, and then it suddenly goes away, and you're like, oh my God, what did we do wrong? What were we doing right? Then what did we do wrong? And it turns out nothing. Google broke something. Google literally broke something. And I'm going to break a cardinal rule here. I'm going to go live for a second. And if you go to the search status, there is the summary page. I did not include this in my deck, but if you were to go through the summary page, there is no entry in here for this message that they gave before. So there is no way to find, where are we?
That bug.
There was no way to find this October 5th bug unless you saw that tweet that they put out. And that was it. And that's kind of the thing that's really kind of bothered me. It's like, hey, Google, do the right thing. They made a mistake. That's fine. These things happen. It's a large company, but you have to notify people. Because to Ted's point, there are companies where this is how SEOs get fired. This is how companies make major changes. You just say, hey, we found a bug, we fixed the bug, everything's done. There was a time where Google used to say, hey, don't be evil. And back in 2015, they made a change. They said, do the right thing, which I find it interesting. They decided it's okay to be evil as long as you're doing the right thing. And so that's kind of why I called it this. It's like, Google, you say you want to do the right thing. You try to do the right thing by sending out a tweet, but to Ted's point, they swept it under the rug. They wanted to hide it. They didn't want anyone to know that something happened or something went wrong.
Now, interesting, when you were talking about this, you said you check this status pretty much every day. And for sites as large as the ones that you work on, I can understand it. But what do you look for? What's a guy like you looking for when you're looking at these search status dashboard on the regular?
So when I check the dashboard, so I'll go in here, and this is not the dashboard, that's the summary. I'll come in here and I'll just see, does Google have anything? Oops, I just clicked the wrong thing. See, this is the danger of live demonstrations. I'll come in here and I'll say, does Google have anything to announce? So there's two things I always monitor. I monitor the Google search. I monitor this Google Search Central in X, and I monitor the dashboard. Oops. And I'm on it just to see, does Google have anything they have to say? What I've found is, if you read between the lines, now maybe I'm reading too much between the lines, but if you read between the lines and their different announcements, you can usually learn interesting things. So for example, back in May, Google made an announcement, maybe it was even January, it was earlier this year for sure. Google made the announcement and said, hey, our core updates are being applied to Discover. They never really clarified whether core updates were applying to Discover. They were also saying the helpful content applies to Discover. And here's kind of a reconfirmation. They ran out their October core update, and we can see, yep, it was applied. We know that it was applied by Discover. We know that what they suggested earlier this year is 100% true because there was a bug. There was a problem. They had to come out and pretty much say that, yep, it was a problem, and we had to make a fix. Now, I will say one thing in defense of Google. So everybody mark your calendar. I'm going to defend Google here for a second. Perhaps the reason they did not mark it into this dashboard is that the problem or the bug did not fall under one of these four buckets. I'm not sure what other buckets there would be, but it is possible, knowing large organizations that I do, that you have to put it under a specific bucket, but you can't put it under a wrong bucket. And so maybe that's why it never showed up in the dashboard, because there just was no bucket for the problem they had. I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, maybe Discover is a separate set of processes. So these are referring maybe to organic
Correct. This
rather
could
than
just be the Google search part. So that does say Google search status. So perhaps the Discover is its own separate thing, and that's why they couldn't put it in one of these buckets because it doesn't apply. But still, if I go to the dashboard status, it still doesn't show anything. This was totally swept under the rug. I'm not giving them that much credit.
Yeah, I think there is a possibility that this dashboard is managed so far down the totem pole that the person who runs it is kind of the last to learn. And
Mhm.
so there is the possibility that the poor individual that's left holding the bag on this dashboard just isn't getting the information until it's way too late.
Yeah, I
Well,
also think going back to this, I think if we go with the crux of Charles' argument here, it'd be nice if somewhere they said, "Hey, on October 5th, we found a bug, tied into Discover, and October 28th, we fixed it." So at least as an SEO, I can line up these bugs to what I'm
Yeah.
seeing in data.
Yeah, exactly. They should at least be honest about the dates when they back populate. They should put it in for October for the discovery and put another entry in for when it was fixed.
well, that they
Um,
did that as well back in July, I think it was, or was it June when they had the bug? I'm not convinced it was a bug, but when they had the problem with the Google News indexation, they backdated back then as well. They didn't backdate. They knew there was a problem on, let's just say it was the 7th. They didn't do their update until the 10th when they were saying, "Oh, well, we think we fixed it, but we're not 100% sure." and then they finally updated several days later and said, "Yep, we fixed it. We're not talking anymore about this." And I always love their little like, "We have nothing else to say about this." Like, come on, Google, you broke something. You're affecting people's businesses and lives. Do the right thing.
well, this was very cool. Yeah, very telling, and yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's a worthy rant in my opinion. So, as an appreciator of rants, I appreciate that.
Yeah, the other thing we need to do is we need to make sure if something gets Charles riled again, we need to do a special live Fight Club episode to catch him in the moment.
Breaking episode. Yeah, my blood was boiling when I found that. When I was like, not only did they not do it, but then they didn't even update it properly, and then they didn't update anything, and because it launched. So one of the things I've been thinking actually is, I wonder what mechanism was required for it to get put out there. Did like one person just say, "Hey, we should probably put a tweet out. Can I please put a tweet out?" And got the approval from their boss, said, "Yeah, you can put a tweet out." Like, why did they put anything out at all? Since we know they didn't really document it very well.
Don't know.
Yeah. So a couple points of discussion before we turn to questions, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of questions, so it might be a short show today. So now's your chance if you've got SEO questions. We don't mind short shows because we can get back to work. So this is for you guys out there who want SEO answers. So one thing that came out of Google was the fact that they said that they're not going to talk about the user engagement signals. So there was a story on that. And everybody was like quick to blame SEOs, going, this is why SEOs can't have nice things and that type of stuff. But I want to point out that we largely know all of the good stuff. Like, we know it. We know how to expand proximity with CTR and local. We know how to do this stuff. So the real reason Google doesn't want to talk about it is because it's probably embarrassing or makes Google look bad. It's not so we don't find out. We already know. Google can talk about the things we openly talk about in public. Like, they can talk about it too. We openly talk about it. They know we know. And the fact that they don't talk about those things ever is on them. It's not on us. So don't don't blame SEOs if Google is doing appalling, privacy invasion things. That's on them. All right. We're SEOs. We min-max marketing campaigns for businesses so they make payroll. That's what we do. We aren't these big evil people that topple governments and corporations. We help mom and pop businesses pay their bills and stay open and be profitable. That's what we do. We're professional min-maxers who work the system so that they don't have to close their doors. And people are like, oh, SEOs, they ruin everything. Well, no, hold Google accountable. We already know the good stuff. Google doesn't want to talk about it. That's on Google. What do you think, Lee?
I can see that. I think that my opinion is that Google's use of user metrics is misunderstood by SEOs. We tend to think, I'm going to go to my site and I'm going to run traffic to this page and I'm going to see whether, it moves up or down, sort of user engagement, or, I'll do some social stuff or whatever it is that we do. And we kind of measure those things. I think that when Google talks about user metrics, they don't give a damn about the user metrics on your particular site. I think they give a damn about user behavior across sites. So if we did something like, let's say an engineer at Google thought that the word purple in an H2 was a quality signal, they can find tens of thousands of sites with purple in an H2, promote them for a short period, measure the clicks, measure the user satisfaction on those searches or whatever it is that they're doing, and then incorporate that information into the algorithm. Now, temporarily, my shitty little site, which has purple in an H2, moves up from number 37 to number 8, and I think I'm doing SEO, or Google's finding favor in my particular thing. I was just a random test subject. I think Google's use of those sort of signals is a horizontal across sites metric for them to calibrate their algorithms rather than a vertical on your particular site to see what you're doing.
Well, one of the things that was mentioned in the text around the Google trial disclosures, that whole thing, was that one of the things, an example of one of the things that Google might be interested in is scrolling on page.
Mm-hmm.
And so scrolling on page implies not on Google's properties. So on other properties that are not Google, Google's tracking how far people who visit the page scroll on the page. Not saying they're doing it. They said that was an example of the kinds of things they're interested in, which isn't a confession that that's exactly what they're doing. But implied in that is they have the ability to know who's visiting pages that are not theirs, and what you're doing on them. So if you're going to your bank and checking your balance, they can see your dwell time on your balance. If you're purchasing something, they can see the thank you page for your purchase and know how far you scrolled it. If you go to a naughty no-no site and you have dwell time, they can see how far down that naughty page you've scrolled. And they know it's you, they know it's that site, and they are watching what you're doing on it.
Oh, absolutely. The very presence of custom search, where your search for a particular thing is influenced by your history, means that there is, some degree of privacy invasion going on there. Now, we don't know the depths of it, and that's certainly open when they're doing sort of testing across the board, because they can test not only pages, they can test user profiles.
Now, it's important that I say that we don't know that Google's doing any of that, but it's implied when they say we're interested in things like scrolling on the page, because that implies that there's a back channel for the clickstream data.
And even if they were doing something along those lines, they would not want to disclose it because that's just a roadmap for manipulation.
Well, and that's the black eye that I think they're desperately trying to avoid. So it's not that, SEOs are so bad we can't talk about the signals because SEOs are bad. Probably not. It's probably Google can't talk about this without really kicking the beehive. And so that would create problems for Google, both for, their business and legally and all kinds of crap. So, this thing where, blame the SEOs for why Google won't talk about it. No, it's on Google.
But the sad thing is we're still going to figure it out.
Yeah,
if there's
we
a
already
mention,
know largely the stuff that's useful to us. We already know.
I mean, we can go and set up bots and things like that to go do scroll testing. And if we find, oh man, you scroll up and down, you zip up and down the page like 10 times and you shoot up in the right, whatever it is, we'll figure it out. So even if they don't disclose it, it's just a matter of time before, it's out there and then everybody knows. So,
yeah.
So at least 7 years ago, maybe even 8 years ago, I was at an SMX. And this was around the time that everybody was interested in bounce rate and click and CTR. And everybody in the forum, there was an actual Googler at the front talking and giving information and answering questions. And people were hammering her about questions about bounce rate and CTR. And she got a little exasperated and she made a statement that she probably wasn't supposed to make. And I feel okay to say this because I know she doesn't work for Google anymore. But she made a statement saying, well, we don't care about the user. I'm going to paraphrase here almost, but there's one word I'm not going to paraphrase. She basically said, we don't care about the user metrics. We're looking for, and this was the word she used, task completion. And ever since I heard that, I'm like, what an interesting way to launch your website. And that kind of came back to me when I saw the new GA4 engagement rate. So GA4 has this engagement rate, and it looks at, they originally got rid of bounce rate, but they had engagement rate instead, which I think it shows, that's where I was talking earlier about kind of reading between the lines. It shows how Google looks at things. And Google is looking to see, did Ted go to this page and do what this page wanted to do? Did Lee go to this page and do what Lee wanted to do with this page?
Which again implies that there's a back channel for collecting your clickstream data, which
For sure
would be a pretty serious privacy implication.
For sure. But I think it kind of shows why they're so confident in saying, just make great content that people love, because they've come up with some way of watching users and figuring out whether Ted really loves this page or not.
That at the simplest level, that does the click to a page terminate search? If I keep going back, bouncing back and looking for other things that, that page was not a great page. So, I get that.
But that's not always true. Like I know from higher end online retail where people shop around, it's not that the websites are bad. People are considering all their options before they make a choice. And so, Google would have to be careful. Like a lot of people also say that bounce rate is bad, but it's not. Like the Daily Dilbert ranks #1, and it has nearly 100% bounce rate because people go see the daily comic strip and then they take off, but they come back every day and look at it again. And so you can't just unilaterally say that bounce rate is bad because it's not. There are many reasons why people bounce, and it's part of a process of how people get the right information they want.
And I think that's what makes, having a search engine challenging, because there are different, types of information. And even when you look and say, okay, so when a featured snippet pops up, what time is it in Seattle? And it goes up there and shows me what time it is in Seattle. It's 9:28 a.m. I don't click on any website. Is that a bad search result page? or is it that the snippet answered my question and I got the information and I left? So it's a challenge from the search engines for sure, but I'll still go back to the reason why they can't show that data is a combination of, yeah, we would manipulate the shit out of it, and yes, it's probably a black eye when people say, wait a minute, Ted went to this page and he filled out a form. you know
Yeah, that's probably the bigger of the two, because they know what we know because we talk about it publicly. And so obviously, if we already know, they could talk about it too because we already know. So, the reason they don't talk about keyword density, the reason they don't talk about CTR, is because of the other implications that make them look bad.
Well, I'm going to disagree with you on that because I find that in talking to SEOs, the vast majority of them believe Google's pronouncements. So if Google says keywords are not a thing, CTR is not a thing, SEO is not a thing, they're like, okay, I'll write good content then because that's the thing. They're not challenging the pronouncements.
Yeah, they don't fix SEO exploits, so I'm gonna push back on that. If they actually cared about that stuff, they'd fix SEO exploits,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't. They haven't for over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And so if they don't care to fix anything in that regard, then that's not really what's motivating them.
No, I mean you can keep the scale of the problem at bay by telling everybody don't do that, we'll catch you, and then most people, most SEOs don't do those things, and therefore it's less of a problem for Google.
I wouldn't say it's less of a problem, because the other thing that SEOs know is that Google's never gonna fix it. That's if Google gave a shit, they'd fix it. But it's been 10 years of updates. What makes you think this update's the one?
I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to take you, sir, to a white hat conference this year. You're going to see.
I know
People
there's a
believe
lot
Google.
of I know there's a lot of Kool-Aid drinkers, but it's getting to a point where that thing where Google makes a proclamation and everyone buys it, like that isn't what it used to be. The crowd that works with is getting smaller fast.
Ted, I think there's still a majority.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, Ted. I don't have any
All
numbers,
right,
but
all
I'm
right.
not sure. I think a lot of people do believe it.
New people getting into SEO, they drink it right along because they see.
Well, yeah, the newbies, the people who have been SEO a short amount of time and never learned the craft. But I think if you gathered up all of the experts who can actually rank pages, I think you'd see a very different pattern among those experts.
Yeah. Hate to say it, Ted, you're wrong. Turn in your host card. Sorry.
All right, show me the list of experts. All right, let's do some questions here. Let's see. Tanya is asking, if tier 1 link is no follow, will you spend money to build a tier 2 or focus on do follow tier 1 only? I don't care about no follow, do follow. I give no cares about it. I don't think it matters. I don't think it does anything important. We rank pages with 100% no follows. So why on earth would I say no to a no follow?
I think Google changed their stance. Oh, go ahead, Terry.
I was going to say, I think Tanya, if you ask her, will tell you she's an SEO.
Hmm.
Just to our
to our earlier point. Well, here's the thing. Google, I think, changed their stance. What was it, a couple of years ago, where they said with respect to the no follow, do follow, that they may choose to ignore that directive. And I think the reason they have to is because there was so much no follow because SEOs were trying to preserve link juice to their sites. They were trying to accumulate it rather than spread it out. That if you think about the link graph with the no follow being absent, it was, majority of it. And so Google just went, to hell with that. I don't think that directive is followed at all. anymore. I think the link graph is the link graph. So, and there's a lot of data. A lot of testers been doing a lot of the testing with no follow. Still powers stuff up quite well. Now, I haven't seen any testing about no follow versus do follow, but I haven't seen anything out there analytically that would make me think that there's an enormous difference, if there is any at all. So
Yeah, it's a subtle difference at best. It's hard to measure.
yeah,
Not saying it doesn't exist, but it's hard to measure.
yeah. So certainly not something where we'd spend a lot of time paying attention to that distinction.
So Paul L would like to know, Charles, do you have any idea of what the Google Discover bug might have been?
So yeah, I put a small response in the chat about that. Quick answer is no, I don't really know. I did see movement in Discover on a few sites, some up a little bit, some down a little bit, but then Discover is so finicky that it could have just been noise at the time. I also checked when I checked the bots to see if there were any minor patches to any of the bots. My guess is this is a back-end process or some kind of back-end calculation that was being done and had nothing to do with the bots. So I don't see a footprint other than just Google sent out this random tweet and then followed it up with nothing.
Yep, that's typically how it goes.
It could be a complete psyop too. Like
Yeah,
maybe they
that's
didn't do
true.
anything. Maybe they just decided to mess with us for a
Well,
day.
if the dates they announce don't align with the anomalies in your data, it's hard to attribute. So your rant is right on point with that.
But they didn't announce the fixed date. It might have been fixed October 6th, and we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we've seen them announce that updates are done, but no return to baseline until 2 weeks later. And so Google and dates, they're just not good at them.
Yeah.
All right. So Tyler says, let's talk some AI here. We all know we're in an informational industry era now, but in terms of Chat GPT, Bard, etc., will they eventually sell the information or entry? So I think this comes down to what happens to pay-per-click and search. And I think it will just simply be pay-per-prompt instead of pay-per-click. So you will bid on keywords that appear in prompts. And when you do, when those prompts are answered, there will be ads next to the answer, which will be the ads. So it'll pretty much be the same thing you have today. It'll just be pay per prompt instead of pay per click. What do you think, Lee?
Well, let me just make sure that so if I'm in looking for the best pizza place in Seattle, it's going to give me the information, but it might at the top have Ted's Pizza, an ad for Ted's Pizza.
Yeah, everybody thinks it's going to be an inline ad where pizza is clickable and that's your ad, and that's kind of garbage. Nobody's going to pay for that. But people will pay. I want to show an ad next to the answers for prompts that mention pizza, and if it shows a full ad next to that prompt answer, people will pay for that. That's just as good as current pay-per-click. And their existing ecosystem can largely handle it. It's just different ad spots that they have to put into their existing management system. So they don't even have to reinvent the wheel. They just have to have a new ad placement capability for those prompts. And then it's pay per prompt, and you go into Google Ads and you bid on some prompts. And I think that would be awesome. I'd love to do that. And if there's a way where you could pay a premium and embed into the prompt, like if it's a list style prompt of software companies, I'll pay to have mine as the sponsored one at the top of the list. And so that's in line, but it's like paid inclusion as a sponsored inclusion to the answer. And so that might be the premium pay per prompt. So ad on the side, or an included element as a sponsored element to the answer, that would be awesome. And
So look at this.
imagine all the links you'd build with those ad campaigns, because people are generating content and you include an answer with your link and it gets published. Are you kidding me? People would go nuts paying for that. But again, these search executives, they don't know how to make money. They do a little bit, but they don't know how to do it with AI. They're too busy safeguarding it. They're not letting everybody have direct access to the web results from their prompt. And that's what we all want. But they're like, no, we have to be safe. So, if they would just put up a disclaimer, and just let people innovate, they could probably gain a ton of market share. They could own the biggest prompt advertising system. They could, there's so many things they could be doing. And I really wish Bing was more on top of it, because they're fumbling again. They got the lead and now they're bungling it. Why don't they just get the lead and keep the lead and innovate? And all right, end of my rant.
Well, it's hard when you're that large. But can you read that question again? Because I understood it a little bit differently.
Yeah. We all know we are in an informational industry era now, but in terms of ChatGPT, Bard, etc., will they eventually sell the information or entries?
No. The thing is, my guess, and this is if I'm pulling out my crystal ball and being the data guy. Right now, the large language models are trained on just an enormous amount of data, but it's also generating a large amount of content on the web. And when you feed AI generated content back into AI models, they perform worse. So the people that have access to the cleanest data sources, those are going to become gold in these coming years. So what they'll sell is the right to train your model on proprietary data sets. And it's going to be harder and harder to keep those things clean, to keep other AI content and other AI things out of it, to train new models for new capabilities. So I think that's kind of something. Yeah. And that's where like Google and Bing have an advantage, because they've got large data sets, just because they crawl the web. They've got a lot of large capabilities there. Now, I was looking at something that was kind of funny. Newsletter I had this morning was comparing the hallucination rates across a number of different models. And I don't think it's ChatGPT 4 had like a 3% hallucination rate, 3.5 had like a 3.5% hallucination, and it went on down through the various ones. And at the very bottom was Google. Google's models had hallucination rates of 12 and 27%, which is just absolutely horrible. And I thought, man, those things are just not ready for prime time. You'd think that it would be better given the amount of data that they have. And Honey said, you know what? Maybe that's the wrong thing. Maybe it's because they have all of the web data. That is the problem. The quality of the entire data set is not as clean, and thus their models don't perform as well, which I thought was an interesting observation. But it goes back to this point, you have to have clean data, not just abundant data. So I think that's kind of where one of the iterations that the AI industry is going to go through.
Yeah, I could imagine. He goes on to say information for sale per se, and Google kind of does that with the you have to have a certain spend amount to unlock keyword planner. That's
right.
That's a way of transacting information for sale. And so yeah, I'd imagine if they start advertising pay per prompt, that you would need a prompt planner, which would give you stats on the kinds of prompts and the kinds of answers and the keyword mention stats in them. And you'd have to know how to target prompts, and there would be data involved with that. And I'd imagine it would be the gatekeep the same way that Keyword Planner is. You have to spend to unlock it because it'll be too darn useful otherwise. Let's see. Ted, you've already tested simulating real users on pages. Was that test recent or a long time ago? It was about 2 years ago. So it's aging. So I do know a lot of people are using CTR to great effect currently. So my understanding is the methods that currently work still work. But all the investment in human emulation stuff, that didn't pan out. That was a big waste of time and money. But never hurts to repeat it. But I'll tell you, I've built the most sophisticated CTR bots that you could imagine, doing all the types of human behaviors and technical session management and logged in users and just all of that stuff. And is probably a 6-figure waste of time and money. So the actual CTR answers are nowhere near that sophisticated for the things that work. So yeah, I wouldn't want you to waste a ton of time and money like I did trying to learn a thing. So definitely be careful and narrowly focused in what you test. Let's see. How could we measure task completion? So that would typically be things like getting to the bottom of the main article or submitting a form or adding something to cart. Those are typically the kinds of tasks that pages would evoke. Or clicking through, having a navigation page clicking through to a leaf node page. So if you landed on a category, did you click into a product? That's the purpose of the category page. So different pages would have completion mechanisms like those. And the reason I know about this is you kind of want to set up those same style of events in your Google Analytics. You can put in custom events and dimensions into your data, and that way you can measure all those task completions through your funnel. And so, yeah, go do them. It's the same thing,
Yeah, the Madge asks over in here, he said, are you guys playing with custom GPTs? What I've seen from people who are playing in that is that they're kind of cool, they're kind of fun, but I haven't seen a breakthrough sort of custom GPT. But I also know that the people that have those breakthrough custom GPTs don't publish about them. So I'll ask you, Madge, what have you been playing with?
Well, I won't be disclosing.
But you found a use.
Yes. Initially, what I'm doing is building automations for my own business, where it can help my VAs or help the actual business do things a lot quicker, right? Where a tedious task a VA could do, ChatGPT could potentially do it a lot quicker. I think it's an exciting time because you could include APIs now in the action section or custom instructions, give it schema and stuff. Zapier is already has its own API custom code where you can insert it into the backend, and then you've got different custom instructions in Zapier, or you could have different triggers doing different things. The thing is, it's so new and so in its infancy right now with these custom GPTs. One thing you need to be careful of, Lee, is if you do make it public, make sure you restrict other people copying what you've told the custom GPT. A lot of people are not doing that. So the first thing I found out was if you tell ChatGPT to give you full instructions of how this was built, it will give you a full breakdown from start to finish of what the entire instruction is. So you could just replicate what the other individual's done. So the one that I've already created is a persona. So imagine you needed a persona for a social media profile, LinkedIn, Facebook, a fake persona. It will give you a full breakdown of the name, age, description of the individual, plus the image with DALL-E 3. But the more information you feed it, the more knowledge you give it, the better it gets. So there's a lot of functionality, and I think this is just the start. And I am actually really, really excited with it, because there will be an app store on ChatGPT very soon,
Right.
where you will be able to monetize these custom GPTs as well. So people are already thinking of ways. You're right. People who are building really complex ones, they're not really promoting them out there or making them public for others to use.
Yeah.
What about you, Lee? Have you tried anything?
Not yet, but I'm because of what I'm seeing, what the capabilities are, like you're talking about automation and things like that. Those are things that I'm interested in. Those are things that would cause me to jump in and say, okay, I can automate certain tasks, certain process, or replace certain things that I'm doing right now with, that sort of automation. Those are always things that I'm interested in doing. Also seeing some interesting things in the data analysis side of things. Feed the AI a data set and have it, extract meaning. If there's ways of doing some of the things that I do faster with that, that is definitely an interest. It's basically having a data scientist on staff, if they can produce,
Hey,
quality output. So,
I know a lot of people are afraid because they're thinking VAs are going to lose jobs and whatever else. I think you need to leverage what you have here, especially with the other thing. I was talking to Terry Power yesterday. Imagine combining Bard, Claude, and ChatGPT all into one, where you can basically gather the information from Bard, put it into a PDF or whatever, and then utilize ChatGPT and create your own custom GPT with all the information that's coming from Bard or Claude.
Yeah,
So
I wouldn't like that right now. I
no?
don't like Bard's answers. And
Ah,
they hallucinate far too often. They're technically incorrect. They have to give you 3 answers and you have to figure out which one is most correct.
hmm.
Yeah, I don't like Google's tech. It's not good enough. And I'll play with it, like I'll spend 10 minutes playing with it, but then I go back to Chat GPT to get any real work done.
but I think the idea here that, if each one of these AIs has capabilities or things where domains where they're a little bit stronger, like Bard's a little bit better at this, Claude's a little bit better at this, ChatGPT's a little bit, you can connect them in an automation stream that leverages the best of those. And with more models coming out, those capability, gets even stronger. The ability to have somebody who is not a PhD in artificial intelligence, somebody who is not a coder, be able
Correct.
to string one of these things together to get work done. That's pretty exciting.
Let's see. We have Honey is saying Ted giving monetary ideas to Google. LOL. Yeah, it's pretty funny. But the crazy thing is there's a good possibility that Google is operating at a loss in AI currently. And if they're operating at a loss in AI currently, then technically I make more money in AI than Google. All right, so let's see.
Do you own TED.ai yet? Because I'm just
Let's see. They don't fix SEO exploits because they haven't perfected who actually is a subject matter expert. Well, yeah, and it gets even more complicated than that. They keep telling everybody to focus on quality, but one person's quality is another person's trash. Like you get people talking about their favorite sodas and which sodas they hate, or their favorite candy and which candy they hate, or their favorite wine, which wine they hate. Man, everything's gonna get loved and hated. And you know, even with pure spam, like Google can't recognize the the quality value to certain audiences versus other audiences. So Kyle Roof's rhinoplasty Plano post, pure spam for rhinoplasty, but single-handedly the most educational, most important SEO blog post ever created in the history of SEO blog posts. One person's trash, another person's treasure.
I think we can safely say, if you looked at a whole bunch of different users, SEOs and non-SEOs alike, a page that was 90% lorem ipsum, we would say was a low quality page, and yet they rank number one all over the place. So what are they fixing? And then the classic examples, like white text on a white background, easy to find,
easy to fix,
and yet still works. So these concepts of we're fighting spam when you're not fighting the easiest things to code and fix, the most obvious ones. It seems, I wonder what the spam updates actually. I don't think that they're just making stuff up. I think they're actually trying to do things, but they're not doing the things that seem to matter to, know.
I think Clint had the right of it. Clint said they're just purging backlinks from the link graph, and that's, whenever they say web spam, that's what it means. It's links, and that's it.
So Charles, you said you're seeing a lot of chatter about HCU rewarding more succinct content.
Yeah, I just was thinking about you guys are talking about the training models, and I'm wondering if it's true that helpful content rewards more succinct content that has the information, or has the information at least up front. Is this Google? It has nothing to do with giving better content to the web. It has to do with they want more helpful content so that they can train their AI models on it. Just a conspiracy theory. I have no data behind it.
I could argue the other side of it. A page that had 5,000 words all about Charles Taylor would be easier to learn about Charles than trying to piece it together, one succinct web page at a time. Because then I have to wonder, is this Charles Taylor? Is it that Charles Taylor? You start to get into those questions, but I also don't have any data on that. So,
and I do know that Google has trouble distinguishing me from other Charles Taylors.
Tanya is asking, any difference putting SEO optimized supporting content, which I think is synonymous with supplemental content if you follow the quality raters guidelines, at the top versus the bottom of the page? So for starters, I have almost 20 years in e-com as an in-house SEO experience, largely ranking pages from footers. So yes, you can rank a page from the footer, you can rank a page from the sidebar. This notion that all your SEO has to go into the main content, it's really weird, people. It's really weird. When you try to put all those words and everything into your main article, man, it's hard too, right? Like, I know people have tried it. It's really hard and it's really weird. And then when you read the quality raters guidelines, imagine me recommending reading the quality raters guidelines. How funny is that? But see what they have to say on supplemental content. Do a find in that document and see all the things they have to say on it. And if after that, if you're not making supplemental content, you're crazy. Because, man, SEO gets easy when you put it in the supplemental content. Then you can put CRO in its own swim lane, can leave the main content alone, leave it for human beings to convert, put all that SEO in the supplemental content, boom. And top or the bottom, I don't think it matters much. There might be a difference, but I'm gonna say it's hard to measure. And so run a test. If you can move the needle from the footer, boom, you can move the
There's
needle from
been
the footer.
I was going to say there's been mentions of it in, patents about, certain zones like that near the top and things like that. And I think even your first 30 kilobyte uh, thing, which didn't fully pan out, but there's indications that things could
Yes.
possibly be better, but it's not so dominant that you see it even in Quora, which you would see if that was the critical piece, you would see that because we have those ranking factors in there to measure, and it's usually not one of the top ones. So
Yeah, I can tell you where we see it playing is in Google's Fast Pass. When Google is trying to do a quick round of look at the document and get it indexed, in that first iteration Fast Pass, being near the top matters. But once you give it time for the actual whole process to happen, the rendered indexing, all of that stuff, it all vanishes. So you lose the signal at that point. So for the first 24 hours, it kind of matters, but then after 48 hours, it's lost. You lose the signal. So it matters for a short duration. So it's very important if you're Charles and you have short duration content, then it's really important. So if you have news that 4 hours from now is stale and dead to the world, then this matters a lot. But if you have an online store, then position on page probably doesn't matter.
yeah, Charles, have you done any testing in that realm that you can talk about? I have to respect both sides of that.
So I will say we do multiple things to make sure that Google sees our content and gets this quickly and as efficiently as possible. We've seen benefits from doing these things. I'm also a belt and suspenders kind of guy. I don't just do one thing. I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this and I'll do this because I don't ever know what is Google looking at, what is Google not looking at for sure. So I give them everything I can, every time I can possibly put the data in front of Google so they do not have to crawl and render the page. I do it. I think that's the closest I can get to the answer.
Outstanding.
All right, let's see. Tyler says pay per prompt would kill all small businesses. I don't think so. It would change a few, but it would largely be the same if you're doing pay-per-click ads now. And in fact, I bet it would be smaller than PPC. So right now it's PPC with training wheels if they did it. So yeah, I don't think it would kill things, but who knows? I don't know everything either.
Well, it's an evolutionary thing. I mean, pay-per-click killed Yellow Pages, and paper prompt might, kill pay-per-click eventually. And, it's the new game as users move to new technologies and there's new ways of getting in front of them that are easier and more effective. So I don't think it kills small business. I think it just changes the game.
And Madge, there's a question here for you. What's the turnaround time on the gold package?
If we're writing the press release, then usually 3 to 5 working days. But we try to get it back to the client within 3 days. Once they've approved it, sent it back to me, then we send it out for distribution within 24 to 48 hours.
How fast can it be if the customer gives you a flawlessly written press release?
24 to 48 hours. Yeah. If it's urgent and you need it out the same day, we can sometimes do that for you. Yeah.
How fast is it if you're competing in an SEO competition?
Within
Yeah, we
seconds.
need to know. This is important.
I remember the SEO Rockstar one, and I knew Dory was going to mention or announce the winners at a specific time. So I released a PR about 5 minutes before she announced it. And then I took the top story section.
Cheat.
Yeah.
Cheat.
Tyler says, yeah, but Google fixed the lorem ipsum exploit ASAP. No, they didn't. They didn't fix it at all. They manually punished Kyle's one page, but Kyle has 15, 20, 30 more of these sites. So the one that was written about in a search engine journal, Google manually punished it. They manually punished Kyle, but they never fixed the glitch. So all the other lorem ipsum rhinoplasty Plano type sites, they all rank, and most of them rank, number one or at least top 3 in their cities. And they all still work after all of the spam updates, after all the helpful content updates, everything. They still work today. So they're not fixed at all. They never were fixed. Google doesn't fix search. They haven't for 10 years. So that's
I
Google.
recently had a mass site that is pure random alpha revived back up and has lots of pages that are ranking again that I hadn't paid attention to in months. So it's not quality. I'm just going to say that straight up.
Yeah. And that's Google's MO, not to fix things, because I've spoken to Google reps. I pointed out very, very obvious spam, and they didn't. But the question was, how do I stop this spam? What they did, without ever talking to me about it, they just punished the spam site, but 20 other sites took its place within a day. And so they weren't interested in fixing the problem. They were just interested in slapping a Band-Aid on it.
Yeah, because the algorithm's the algorithm.
Yeah, I think part of the problem is they've created this monster. They cannot stop it from crawling. They cannot stop it from doing its thing. It just, like you said, Ted, they'd have to replace it. They couldn't change it.
Well, I question whether or not they want to. And I think there's enough wrong with it, and it's so expensive and cumbersome. I would imagine they're hoping to replace it with some next gen technology. So they're probably putting the money in R&D instead of the money in trying to duct tape search. And that's probably the right thing to do, but it's just, they kind of implied that they had everything fixed and that they hire the best and the brightest and they stop all this stuff, but they never did. So the bluff at some point in time becomes a lie. And so now they're kind of on the hook for the lie. And
well, I'm coming to Google's defense here, which is an unusual position to me. I might not be feeling well. Their market share is dominant. Microsoft's investment in OpenAI has not resulted in a huge uptick in Bing, overtaking Google. So what's the economic case for fixing search?
Oh, I'll tell you, man, when I can ask ChatGPT, when I can go and say, hey, ChatGPT, pull the top 100 results from Bing for this keyword and write a description of each one and provide a thumbnail view of each web result. Because I'm doing a roundup on that topic, and that's going to be the bulk of my list style article. When I get that capability, and that's the thing they're gatekeeping, going, no, we got to make it safe for you. We need to protect you from yourself so you cannot harm yourself with AI. No. we want to do work. We want to be productive. So whoever's AI lets us be productive first, they get our loyalty, they get our impressions, they get our market share. And so right now, Bing and Google are having a safety fight. Who can be safer for the public? And nobody wants it. Nobody. Give us the thing we want. We can see the technologies there. This should have been there months ago. And that's the thing. And honestly, when first search engine to do that on scale, it's going to take all the market share. Just all of it. Like it's going to die for everyone else overnight. But, someone has to not be a coward, and that's kind of hard for search executives because they're very cowardly people.
Fighting word. I like it.
Hey, it's SEO Fight Club. Gotta fight. Let's see. All right. For this factor, number of distinct HTML attributes used, what kind of factors should I be using to increase that? All right, so that is a diversity factor. So an HTML attribute, that's a key value pair. It's things like on an image where you'd say alt equals quote and the image description end quote. That is an HTML attribute. It's inside of a tag. And so this factor is looking at the number of distinct attributes used in your document, and it's comparing it to the diversity of attributes used on other pages. Normally, what I would recommend people do is that you use your title attributes on links so that there's a tooltip that could explain more about what's at the other end of that link. So if you hover a link, you get a short description of what you'll find there. So the title attribute is a great one. The alt attribute on images is fantastic. As Honey likes to say, be very verbose. Very verbose.
She says descriptive.
Descriptive, yes. Yeah, these are good things. And there are other attributes as well. Every now and again, we do a style of testing called will it index testing. And there are generally two kinds of testing that are popular in the community, will it index and will it boost. And so will it index testing is if I put a keyword in a specific zone of the page, will Google process it so it's findable in search? And so is that zone of the page included? That's a will it index type of test. A will it boost test is, if I do keyword density in this zone, is that part of Google's density calculation, and will it boost my ranking? Do I see ranking advantage to putting density in that location? And so those are kind of the two styles of tests. And the will it boost test is really hard to do, and the will it index test is really, really easy. And so what you can technically do if you want to find out which of the attributes are in play is you put an imaginary keyword in every HTML attribute you can find in W3 schools. So JLR213H6, put that in an image alt. If you find that keyword in search, it's in a do index zone in Google. And Google periodically changes the zoning laws. There's a secret type of update called a zoning update, which my term, not Google's, they won't admit to it, but we have evidence over time that Google has changed the zoning laws. And so they periodically change what parts of the page are in and out of play. So you would ideally want the attributes that are in play. And the last time I checked, that would be the alt attribute and the title attribute. All right.
Hold on a second. I think Madge has value. It's a rare thing, but we'll give it a shot. Go ahead, Match.
Thank you, Lee, for the nice, kind words. Small little announcement for the goal package. We've added podcast PR now to the mix. So every PR that we not only write and send out, we convert it into a podcast script for the client. We then give it a voiceover by using one of the APIs and embed it within the PR before it goes out. So the podcast, as well as the press release, will get distributed more or less at the same time to all the major. It's only part of the goal package for now.
So what platforms is the podcast findable on?
SoundCloud. So all the major ones. So SoundCloud, Apple Podcast, Google. It's on, I think, between 12 or 15 different podcasts right now.
And is the press release and the podcast episode description?
Yes. So in the description, we've managed to add the link to the actual PR to the newsroom post that I own, plus to the client's website, and one back to the actual PR itself. So there's about 3 links within the actual podcast script already built in.
Very cool.
Yeah, all right. That's kind of a big
That's
deal.
value, right, Lee?
Tiered linking. It's already there. You think you're buying one link tier, but you're buying more than one.
Yeah. And video will be coming very soon. I'm just working on it at the moment.
Sounds awesome.
All right, so last question here. Site A has been around for decades, ranks in the first position. Site B creates supplemental content and starts out ranking. How long could it hold its position? So how long could Site A hold it? Well, I've done supplemental content tricks that have ranked to #1 overnight. So if it's an already ranking page and it's in good health and good standing with Google, your on-page SEO oftentimes can have ranking impact within 24 to 48 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you could lose that top spot by tomorrow if you're not careful, if that's a competing site that's Site B. If it's your site that's Site B, you could be spot #1 tomorrow. It really depends what you're missing, and you need data. So do you have enough off-page? Do you have enough factor diversity? So what are they doing that you're not doing? So we typically want to look at the data before we give you any formal advice. But yeah, we've seen things like that flip in 24 hours. That's happened before.
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a better, overall page on and off page and stuff like that, yeah, you can take down an established competitor. We've seen that over and over again. So just because somebody has a great site and they've been there for a decade doesn't mean that the spot is cemented to them.
Yeah. And in fact, we kind of view Yelp and Amazon at the top of a search result as a sign of weakness. That means it's an easier than normal category or search result page. All right, so we will end it there. Thank you, everyone, for the great questions. You had me worried at the midway point when there weren't any, but you guys came through, so I appreciate it. And thank you, Charles, for the rant. I thought it was a very good one. I agree completely.
I'll try to be angrier next time.
Yeah, that's all right. It can have variable amounts of outrage.
No. I want the office chairs flying around. I want, the pure hulking Charles rant. That's what I want to see.
Well, he's in an office environment, so he's probably trying to not grab too many stairs.
It's better for our subscriber rates.
Who cares what his employer thinks?
Exactly.
We'll figure something out. We'll schedule something.
All right.